I never thought I'd find myself writing something like this. My name is Jake, and I'm just a regular guy in my 30s living in suburban Ohio. I've been married to my wife, Lisa, for 7 years. We met in college where she was the bubbly cheerleader and I was the awkward geek who fell for her charm. Everything seemed perfect at first: great job, a cute house, and plans for a family. But lately, things have felt off. It started small. Lisa had been going to the gym more often, and I noticed she was hanging out with a new group of friends. She always seemed to be in a rush, and some evenings she'd come home later than usual, citing gym classes or girls' nights. At first, I didn't think much of it. I mean, who doesn't want to get fit, right? But the more I thought about it, the more I felt a creeping suspicion. There was something about her late-night texts and the way she'd glance at her phone that felt secretive. One day, I decided to surprise her at the gym. I figured I'd show up, maybe join her for a workout, and we could spend some quality time together. When I arrived, I didn't expect to see her laughing and flirting with the gym trainer, a guy named Mark. He was the kind of guy who looked like he just walked off the cover of a fitness magazine, tanned, muscular, and full of confidence. The way she tossed her hair and leaned in to touch his arm sent a wave of nausea through me. It felt like I was being punched in the gut. I stood there, frozen, as reality began to sink in. They were clearly more than just gym buddies. I felt my heart race as I watched them interact, and the truth hit me like a freight train. Lisa was cheating on me. I could see the way Mark looked at her, and it made me feel sick. My Lisa, the girl I thought I knew, was betraying me. I left the gym that day, feeling like the world was crumbling around me. The next few days were a blur. I watched her come and go, waiting for the right moment to confront her. Each time she came home, I studied her face for any signs of guilt or remorse, but she always wore that same carefree smile. It was infuriating. I couldn't shake the images of her with Mark from my mind, and the anger started to boil over. When I finally confronted her, it was like a dam bursting. "Lisa, are you seeing someone else?" I demanded, my voice shaking. She looked at me, her eyes widening in surprise, and for a fleeting moment I thought she might confess. But then she smirked. "Jake, are you seriously questioning me? You know how busy I've been at the gym." "I'm just getting fit. You should try it sometime." It was such a ridiculous excuse that I almost laughed, but the anger bubbling inside me wouldn't let me. I pushed her harder. "Don't lie to me. I know what I saw." Her expression changed then, shifting from surprise to defensiveness. "You're being paranoid, Jake. I can't believe you'd think that of me. I'm just trying to get in shape and enjoy my life." I was stunned. How could she turn the tables on me like that? The confrontation spiraled into a full-blown argument, filled with accusations, denial, and hurtful words. I asked her directly about Mark, and she flat out denied anything was happening. I knew better, but the way she looked at me was like she was mocking my pain. After that confrontation, I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I was filled with disbelief and anger, and it was hard to focus on anything else. I thought about how much I loved her, how we built our life together, and how it all seemed to be crumbling over a lie. I started to spiral, replaying every moment in my head, trying to figure out where I went wrong. It felt like I was losing a part of myself. As the days turned into weeks, I had to make a choice. I could either let this consume me or take control of my life in a different way. I decided I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. If Lisa wanted to play games, then I would play them too, but on my terms. I would become the fittest, most successful version of myself, not just to get back at her, but for me. This was the moment I turned my anger into fuel. I signed up for personal training sessions, focused on my career, and started networking harder than ever. I wanted to rise above this, to show not just Lisa but myself that I was capable of so much more. This was just the beginning of my journey. I had no idea how far I would go and what I would discover about myself in the process, but I was determined to turn my pain into power. The days turned into a routine of sweat and determination. I woke up early, hit the gym hard, and then went to work. Lisa would come home, and I would act as if everything was fine, but inside, I was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, pain, and a growing sense of empowerment. I started to see changes in my body, but more importantly, I began to feel changes in my mind. Each drop of sweat on the gym floor felt like a drop of weight being lifted off my shoulders. I hired a personal trainer, Emily, who pushed me beyond my limits. She was tough, but she also had a way of motivating me. I told her about my situation, how I wanted to channel my heartbreak into strength, and she respected that. With each session, I felt stronger, not just physically but emotionally. I was reclaiming my identity. I began to enjoy the gym, discovering new strengths I didn't know I had. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her routine, and I maintained my facade. She would talk about her gym classes, her friends, and how she was getting so fit. I noticed she was wearing tighter clothes and seemed to be genuinely proud of her progress. I made mental notes of everything, storing them like pieces of a puzzle, waiting for the right moment to act. One afternoon, I was scrolling through social media while eating lunch, and I stumbled upon a photo that changed everything. It was a picture of Lisa and Mark, arms around each other, grinning like they were the only two people in the world. The caption read, "New training partner. Couldn't ask for a better workout buddy." My heart sank. I felt that familiar wave of nausea wash over me, but this time it was mixed with a rush of clarity. This was it. I had the evidence I needed. I thought about confronting her again, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me upset. I decided to play it cool. I would gather more evidence, bide my time, and then unleash my plan for revenge. I started to follow her more closely, taking note of her schedule and where she went after work. It was exhausting but exhilarating at the same time. I felt like I was on a mission. A week later, I managed to catch her in a lie. She told me she was going to a late dinner with friends from work. I pretended to believe her, but instead I followed her. It felt like something out of a movie, adrenaline pumping through my veins as I drove to the restaurant where she was supposedly meeting friends. As I parked and walked toward the entrance, my heart raced. I spotted her through the window, sitting across from Mark, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of low-hanging lights. I could see her laughing, leaning into him, and in that moment I felt a storm of emotions swirling inside me. I wanted to burst through the door, confront them both, and wreak havoc, but I knew I had to keep my composure. I backed away, returning to my car, the breath hitching in my throat. Seeing them together solidified my resolve. I wouldn't just become fitter, I would show her that I could thrive without her. I drove home, a mix of anger and determination surging through me. That night I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa's face, the way she smiled at Mark, the warmth she used to show me. But I felt something greater than sadness. This was my breaking point. I decided then that I wouldn't just become a new version of myself. I would crush every notion of what she thought I was. Lisa would see the man I could become, and she would regret losing me. I started to plan my revenge. I wanted it to be swift, impactful, and unforgettable. I would attend the gym more regularly, become the best version of myself, and perhaps even catch her off guard. I needed to make sure that when I showed up in her life again, she wouldn't recognize the man I'd become. As the weeks rolled on, the culmination of my transformation was about more than just physical fitness. It was about reclaiming control of my life. I began networking more seriously at work, taking on additional projects and impressing my boss with my dedication. I even signed up for a local marathon, something I never imagined I would do. It was a challenge, but I wanted to push myself, to go beyond just revenge and into the realm of personal victory. With every mile I ran, I felt a sense of liberation. I was becoming someone new, someone better, and the idea of showing Lisa what I could achieve fueled my workouts and made my heart race. I was turning heartbreak into strength, and with every ounce of sweat I felt more empowered. Little did Lisa know I was just getting started. My journey was about to take a turn, one that would not only transform me but also teach her a lesson she'd never forget. As the weeks passed, my transformation became more visible, not just in my physique but in my demeanor. I was gaining confidence that I hadn't felt in years. People at work began to notice, complimenting me on my dedication and the changes they saw in me. I was no longer the guy who blended into the background. I was stepping into the spotlight, and it felt amazing. I kept upped my gym routine and continued training with Emily, who was thrilled to see my progress. I was lifting heavier weights, running faster, and my energy levels were through the roof. I even started eating healthier, meal prepping and cooking for myself, which was a monumental shift from the takeout we used to favor. Lisa didn't seem to notice, or perhaps she did but chose to ignore it. She was still caught up in her own world, and I took comfort in that. One evening, I was at the gym when I received a text from a mutual friend who mentioned that Lisa was planning a birthday party for herself. The party would be held at a trendy rooftop bar downtown, and she had invited a number of her friends. As I read the text, a sinister idea began to take shape in my mind. This was my chance to make a statement. I decided I would attend the party, but not as the broken husband she might expect. I would go as the fittest, most successful version of myself, someone who radiated confidence and strength. I wanted her to see what she had lost. I spent the next few days preparing, getting the perfect outfit that accentuated my new physique and practicing my approach in the mirror. The anticipation fueled me, and I couldn't wait for the night to arrive. When the day of the party came, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. I arrived at the bar early to scope out the scene, and as the sun set, I could see the city skyline glowing in the backdrop. I took a moment for myself, breathing in the cool air and reminding myself of my journey. I had come so far, and tonight was about reclaiming my narrative. As guests began to trickle in, I spotted Lisa right away. She looked stunning in a fitted dress that showcased her figure, but there was something in the way she laughed a little too loud, as if trying to draw attention to herself. I took a deep breath and approached the party, making sure to keep a confident posture as I chatted with friends and acquaintances. The moment she spotted me, her expression shifted from surprise to something close to panic. I could see her mind racing as I walked over, a small smile on my face. "Hey, Lisa, happy birthday," I said warmly. The surprise in her eyes quickly morphed into a feigned nonchalance. "Oh, Jake, you decided to show up," she said, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the edge in her voice. We exchanged pleasantries, and I took a moment to observe her. She was flustered, and I could see the walls she had built around herself beginning to crack. The more I interacted with others at the party, the more I could feel her eyes on me, watching, calculating. I could see her trying to gauge my reaction, trying to understand who this new version of me was. As the night wore on, I caught sight of Mark lurking around, laughing with a group of people at the bar. I could feel a twinge of anger bubbling up inside me, but I pushed it down. I was there to show Lisa what she was missing, not to engage in any petty confrontations. Eventually, Lisa and Mark ended up together at the bar, and I decided it was time to turn up the heat. I casually approached them, drink in hand, and greeted them both with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Mark, great to see you, man. Heard you've been keeping busy with all those training sessions." Mark, caught off guard, stuttered for a moment, and I could see Lisa's face flush with embarrassment. "Oh, yeah, just trying to help people get fit," he replied, trying to sound casual. I could sense the tension in the air. "That's awesome. Lisa's been working hard too. Looks like you both make quite the team," I said with a grin that didn't hide my underlying sarcasm. Lisa's expression shifted from shock to irritation, and for a moment I reveled in it. I could see that my presence was unsettling to her, and that gave me a rush of satisfaction. I was no longer the silent husband in the background. I was now an active participant in my own story, and she had to reckon with that. As the night continued and drinks flowed, I engaged with other guests, laughing and enjoying myself. I could feel Lisa's eyes on me, trying to decipher my every move, and it felt empowering. I danced with friends, chatted up acquaintances, and exuded an energy I hadn't felt in years. I was in control, and it felt liberating. Then, just as I was enjoying a moment of victory, Lisa approached me. "What's with the act, Jake? You think you can just come here and show off like this?" Her voice dripped with condescension, but I kept my cool. "Not showing off, just enjoying life, Lisa. Maybe you should try it sometime," I responded, my tone light but firm. Her face twisted into a scowl, and for a moment I could see the jealousy flickering in her eyes. "I don't need this from you." "I'm happy with my life," she shot back, but I could hear the cracks in her facade. "Are you? Because you seem pretty intent on proving something tonight. I'm just here to celebrate your birthday like everyone else." I turned to walk away, letting her stew in her own thoughts. The night culminated with a toast to Lisa, and I raised my glass, looking directly at her. To new beginnings and taking control of our lives. A cheer went up around the room, but I could see Lisa's smile falter, and that gave me a sense of victory. As I left the bar that night, I felt triumphant. I had shown her the man I had become, and I could tell it had affected her deeply. This was only the beginning. I was ready to take my plan to the next level and ensure that Lisa would truly realize what she had lost. The path to my victory was clearer than ever, and I was determined to see it through. The aftermath of Lisa's birthday party lingered in the air like a thick fog. I returned home that night feeling a mix of exhilaration and power. I had shown her I wasn't just the husband she could walk all over. I was a man who was taking charge of his life. But as the initial thrill faded, the reality of my situation set in. I knew I had to be careful. My next steps needed to be strategic. In the days that followed, I ramped up my training and work commitments. I was unstoppable, approaching each day with a newfound vigor. I spent more time at the gym, honing my body and refining my skills. I was also networking harder than ever at work, landing a few big projects that had my boss considering me for a promotion. The more I accomplished, the more I felt like I was living on a different plane than Lisa. But the most delicious part of my transformation was the way Lisa started to react. She would come home, and while she initially played it cool, I could sense the tension. She would glance at me with a mix of admiration and confusion, as if she couldn't quite reconcile the man she had taken for granted with the one standing before her now. Every time I caught her watching me, that little spark of victory surged within me. One evening she asked me if I wanted to join her for dinner with some friends, a rare moment of connection, or so I thought. I agreed, hoping it would give me another chance to showcase my transformation. We arrived at the restaurant and I quickly realized that Mark would be there. My heart raced, not with fear but with anticipation. I wanted to see how she would handle it. As the group gathered, I noticed Lisa's demeanor change. She seemed nervous, glancing around as if she were expecting Mark to corner her. When he finally showed up, I could feel the tension in the air. He sauntered over, all confidence and charm, greeting Lisa with a warm hug and a lingering gaze. I smiled internally, knowing that this was the moment I had been preparing for. The dinner was a blend of casual banter and awkward silences. Mark tried to engage me in conversation, but it felt forced. I could see Lisa squirming, caught between her past with me and her present with him. I played it cool, laughing, joking, and engaging with the others while making sure to subtly remind her of the new me. I was fun, witty, and confident, and it was hard not to notice how others gravitated toward me. At one point, I caught Lisa staring at me across the table, her expression a mix of longing and regret. I raised my glass to her, a silent toast to what she was missing. But it was Mark who interrupted the moment, trying to steer the conversation back to his fitness regimens and the classes he was teaching. "You should come by the gym more often, Jake. We could use your energy," he quipped, smirking as if he wanted to prove a point. I chuckled. "I'm good, man. I'm busy with my own training, but thanks for the invite." There was a glimmer of irritation in Mark's eyes. I sensed he was beginning to realize I wasn't just some passive husband anymore. As the night progressed, I noticed Lisa becoming increasingly distant. She wasn't participating in the conversation like she usually would, her eyes drifting back to me more often. I made a point to engage with others, laughing and enjoying myself while occasionally throwing a playful glance in her direction. It was exhilarating to watch her react. I was no longer the man she wanted to control, I was the man she now envied. After dinner, as we walked back to the car, Lisa was unusually quiet. I could sense the turmoil within her, and it was a sweet victory. "You okay?" I asked, feigning concern. "Yeah, just you've changed a lot, huh?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I decided to push a little further. "You think so? I'm just trying to live my best life." She shot me a quick glance. You seem happier. It's different. I smirked to myself as I turned the key in the ignition. It's funny how that works. Sometimes we need to hit rock bottom to start climbing back up. Her expression darkened momentarily, but she quickly masked it with a smile. I guess we all have our own paths to follow. We drove in silence for a few moments, and I could feel the weight of our unspoken words. I didn't want to push her too hard. I wanted her to come to realizations on her own. I was planting the seeds of doubt, and eventually they would bloom. The next week, I decided to ramp things up a notch. I wanted to make it clear that I was moving on. I updated my social media profiles, highlighting my achievements at work and sharing progress photos of my fitness journey. I was becoming that guy, the one who posted motivational quotes and fitness milestones. I was ready to show the world, not just Lisa, that I was thriving. The response was overwhelming. Friends and acquaintances began reaching out, commenting on my posts and showering me with compliments. It felt good, and I could see Lisa watching from the sidelines, her jealousy growing as she scrolled through my updates. I knew it was getting to her, and that was the point. I wanted her to see that I was redefining success and happiness without her. Yet despite all this, there was still an emotional undercurrent that I hadn't fully addressed. I found myself contemplating what I truly wanted. Did I want Lisa back, or was I just enjoying the power of my transformation? Was I seeking revenge, or was this about reclaiming my life? That night, I lay in bed, unable to sleep as thoughts raced through my mind. I kept replaying my interactions with Lisa, wondering if there was a possibility of reconciliation. But then I reminded myself of the hurt and betrayal she had caused. I was filled with a mix of anger and determination, realizing that I needed to clarify my own intentions before I could proceed. The time for revenge was approaching. I could feel it in my bones. I was ready to confront her one last time and make her understand the gravity of what she had done. I had transformed into a new man, and it was time for her to face the consequences of her actions. The wheels were in motion, and I was prepared for whatever came next. The following week felt like a pressure cooker about to explode. I could sense that I was closing in on a pivotal moment, one that would determine the direction of my life. Lisa was still trying to navigate her way through this new version of me, and I was preparing to confront her about everything: the affair, the lies, and the distance that had grown between us. It was time to lay everything out on the table. I decided to orchestrate this confrontation in a way that would maximize its impact. I invited her to dinner at our favorite restaurant, a place that held memories of happier times. I figured the ambience would add weight to the conversation. As I planned, I found myself grappling with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Would she be remorseful? Would she try to manipulate me again? I had to be prepared for it all. On the night of our dinner, I dressed sharply in an outfit that reflected the confident man I had become. I arrived at the restaurant early, taking a moment to collect my thoughts. I wanted to be calm and collected, ready to deliver my points without letting my emotions cloud my judgment. When Lisa arrived, she looked stunning as always, but there was a nervous energy in her demeanor. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, you look great," she said, attempting to break the ice, but I could tell she was on edge. "Thanks, Lisa, you too, shall we?" I gestured toward our table, and as we sat down, I knew the moment for honesty was near. We made small talk for a few minutes, but I could tell it was a facade, both of us skirting around the real issues. Finally, I took a deep breath and decided it was time to dive in. "Lisa, I've been thinking a lot about us lately." Her eyes widened, and I could see her bracing for what was to come. "Oh, what do you mean?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "I want to talk about the affair, about Mark." She flinched at the mention of his name, and I pressed on. "I know what's been going on, Lisa. I saw you with him, the way you laughed and flirted. It hurt to see that, especially after everything we've been through." She opened her mouth to respond, but then hesitated. "Jake, No, let me finish," I interrupted, my voice steady but firm. "You've spent so much time trying to convince me that I was paranoid, but you were lying to my face. You chose to betray our marriage, and that's not something I can just overlook." I watched her expression shift from defensiveness to guilt. I was confused. I didn't mean for it to happen. she stammered, attempting to defend herself. Mark was just someone who listened. I felt like you didn't care anymore. Her words struck a nerve and my anger flared. So you decided to cheat instead of communicating. You could have talked to me, but you chose to play games. You chose to disrespect us. I didn't think you notice, she exclaimed, her voice rising. You were so focused on the gym and your job, I felt neglected. Neglected? I echoed incredulously. You were the one who created that distance. While I was working on myself, you were sneaking around with someone else. That's not neglect, that's betrayal. And now look at us. The silence that followed hung heavy in the air. I could see the realization dawning on her that this wasn't just a casual conversation, this was a reckoning. Jake, I'm sorry, she said quietly, her voice wavering. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Sorry isn't enough, Lisa. You can't just say you're sorry and expect everything to go back to normal. You broke my trust and you broke us. Tears welled in her eyes, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But I quickly reminded myself of the pain I had endured. What do you want me to say? That I forgive you and we can go back to the way things were? I shook my head. I'm not that guy anymore. I've changed. I see that, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You're a different person. Yes, I am, I replied, my tone softening slightly but still resolute. I'm not the man who will tolerate being treated like a fool. I'm stronger now and I deserve better. She looked down at her hands and I noticed her breathing quicken. What are you saying, Jake? Are you done with us? I took a moment to collect my thoughts. The question hung in the air and I felt the weight of it. It was clear that this was a pivotal moment for both of us. I don't know if I can stay in a marriage built on lies, Lisa. I need to think about what's best for me. Her eyes filled with tears and she reached across the table, her hand trembling. Please don't say that. I want to make things right. I want to fix this. Do you really? I challenged, leaning back in my chair. Or do you just want to fix it because you see me thriving without you? What would it take for me to believe you? She opened her mouth to respond, but I could see the struggle in her eyes. She wasn't prepared for a true confrontation, and it felt powerful to be on the other side of that equation. You have to understand that this is about more than just us, Lisa. This is about me reclaiming my life. I won't settle for less than I deserve. Once again, silence settled between us. I could see that she was processing everything, trying to come to terms with the consequences of her actions. I don't want to lose you, Jake, she finally said, her voice cracking. I love you. I wish I could believe that, I said, my heart heavy. But love isn't enough when trust has been shattered. I need time to figure things out. As we finished our meal in silence, I could feel the weight of the conversation hanging over us. I was ready to walk away from this chapter of my life, but part of me still wondered what the future might hold. The confrontation had been necessary, but it had also opened a door to uncertainty. When we left the restaurant, I felt lighter in some ways but burdened in others. I had confronted her, but the final decision about our marriage still loomed ahead. It was time to take a step back and truly assess what I wanted for my future. I had come so far in my journey, and now it was about deciding how to move forward, whether that meant letting go of Lisa or seeing if there was still a chance. For us, as I lay in bed that night, I realized that my path had diverged in two directions, and I had to choose wisely. I was determined to embrace the next phase of my journey, whatever it may hold. In the days that followed our dinner, I found myself in a state of reflection. I had taken a bold step in confronting Lisa, but now I needed to think about the life I wanted to create moving forward. The weight of my emotions felt heavy, but at the same time I was resolute in my newfound identity. I had become a stronger, more capable man, and I wasn't going to let that go to waste. After much contemplation, I decided I needed to take some time apart from Lisa. I needed space to think clearly about what I truly wanted. It wasn't easy. This was the woman I had spent years building a life with, but the betrayal still stung deeply. I approached her with my decision and explained that a separation would give us both time to reflect on our relationship. Lisa took it hard. Her eyes filled with tears, and she pleaded with me to reconsider. I'll do anything, Jake. I'll go to therapy. I'll work on myself. Please don't leave me, she begged. but I stood firm, knowing that this was what I needed, time to heal and reassess our marriage. As I moved into my own place, it felt surreal. The initial days were filled with mixed emotions, freedom tinged with loneliness. I threw myself into my training, pushing harder than ever. I signed up for that marathon I'd been eyeing, and the structure and challenge kept my mind occupied. I felt more alive than I had in years, and it was exhilarating. With each passing day, I began to realize just how much I had suppressed my own needs for the sake of our relationship. I started to rediscover passions I had forgotten about: reading, cooking, and even taking up hiking. I made new friends, some from the gym and some from work, and it felt refreshing to forge new connections. But one thing I hadn't expected was the emotional toll of separation. I often found myself thinking about Lisa and the life we had built together. I missed her laughter, our inside jokes, and the little moments that made our relationship special. Yet, every time I thought about reconciling, I reminded myself of the betrayal that had shattered my trust. Weeks turned into months, and as my marathon approached, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I had trained hard, not only physically but mentally and emotionally. The race became symbolic of my journey, not just of running but of reclaiming my life. On race day, the atmosphere was electric. The energy of the crowd and the anticipation of the challenge ahead filled me with excitement. As I crossed the starting line, I felt a surge of adrenaline. I was running not just for the finish, but for the journey I had undertaken, a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and resilience. Throughout the race, I pushed myself, remembering the pain I had felt and the strength I had cultivated. With each mile, I felt lighter, as if I was shedding the weight of my past. I crossed the finish line with a sense of accomplishment I had never felt before. I had achieved something significant, not just in terms of fitness but in life. That night, I decided to call Lisa. I had been avoiding it, but I felt it was time to check in. As the phone rang, I felt a mix of anxiety and anticipation. When she finally picked up, her voice was tentative. "Jake, hey, it's me," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. "I just wanted to see how you've been." "I've been okay. It's been tough without you," she admitted, and I could hear the sincerity in her voice. "I've been doing a lot of thinking too." We talked for a while, and I could sense a shift in her tone. She sounded more grounded, more aware of the changes that needed to happen. "I've started therapy," she confessed. "I know I messed up, and I'm trying to understand why I made those choices." That was a step I hadn't expected. "I'm glad to hear that, Lisa. It's important to work on yourself if you want to change," I replied, my heart softening slightly. We continued to talk, and I could feel the walls between us beginning to lower, but I also knew that healing would take time. "Look, I'm not ready to jump back into things," I clarified. "I need to keep focusing on myself and seeing where my journey takes me." "Of course I understand," she said softly. "I just want you to know that I'm here and I'm committed to making things right, whether that's together or separately." That conversation marked a turning point for both of us. While it was still unclear what the future held, I felt a sense of hope. We had both taken steps toward personal growth, and that was a start. As weeks turned to months, I continued to focus on my own path. I found joy in my fitness journey and new friendships. I embraced my independence, enjoying the freedom that came with it. At the same time, Lisa kept working on herself, and we stayed in touch periodically, checking in and sharing our progress. Eventually, we decided to meet up for coffee one afternoon. It felt different, lighter. We both acknowledged the growth we had experienced over the months. "I've missed this," she said, a genuine smile crossing her face. "Me too," I admitted, feeling a warmth in my heart. But I also knew that trust was something that needed to be rebuilt slowly and cautiously. As we continued to meet, I felt a cautious optimism begin to take shape. The road ahead was uncertain, but I realized that I was open to exploring the possibility of working things out. It wouldn't be easy, and it would require a lot of honesty and communication, but it felt worth trying. In the end, my journey had taught me a powerful lesson. Sometimes it takes losing yourself to truly find who you are meant to be. I had fought through pain and emerged stronger, and whether that meant reconciling with Lisa or moving forward separately, I was ready to embrace whatever came next. Life was full of possibilities, and I was finally ready to explore them on my own terms.